DAPTIME Sports. Full episodes can be found at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on our website at www.itsdaptime.com. Subscribe to us on Instagram at DAPTIME21, Twitter at DAP_time, Facebook at DAPTIME, and on YouTube at DAPTIME TV. Be sure to hit the notification bell and subscribe. Thank you for your continued support. It's time.
What up? What's happening? Welcome to another episode of DAPTIME's Game Time. It's our conversation all about sports and sports-related topics. I am AJ, also known as B-Dub, Bobby Westbrook, and right here on my side, tag teaming with Big Dame, my partner in crime, and keeping the groove steady in-house in the rhythm section, Pete Nice, our maestro of choice. And the three of us are happy to welcome you to a sports conversation, DAPTIME style. So it's time to lace them up and get busy. What up, Big Dame?
What's happening, bro? Another day,
oh, man,
another
I'm
dollar?
ready to do it. Another
Right,
day,
right.
and at least 50 cents. I can't count a full dollar, but at least 50 cents.
You know what? You look like you just worked about 12 hours a day and just got set to relax because you look like you're chilling. I just got to let you know that you look like you are chilling.
Let me tell you, bro, if I was sitting
envious.
on a milk crate right now, I probably would look exactly the same. It was that kind of a week.
Well, you wearing it well, brother. You wearing it well.
Thank you, man. Well, I'm happy to be here with you. That always is a nice way to close the week out.
Sure.
Listen, man, when we jump in on the wire, you know, we started last conversation talking a little bit about the NFL and the draft coming up and thought it would be really cool, man, to these next few episodes, just take different position players coming into the draft and look at that position exclusively. So to kick this off, I thought it'd be really good, you being a former running back, me being a former struggling running back. I thought it'd be cool to look at the running back position to start. And my first question for you is, as you look at this NFL draft and the guys coming in, are there any running backs in this class that you're really, really excited to see go to the next level?
I tell you, man, there's a couple. Of course, there's the obvious. You know, you have Najee Harris, Travis Etienne probably will be the first couple to go. Travis Etienne from Clemson, of course. Najee from Alabama. Both had great careers, great college careers, and I think they'll translate well into the pro game. But, you know, and it's going to sound like I'm a homer, but you know who I'm really excited to see? Because I'm curious to see.
Who's that?
Because we got such a small snippet last season, and I think there's a lot of upside to him, and it's Trey Sermon. Yeah. You know, I mean, he did.
I knew you were going down that road.
I wasn't going to, but I started looking at the numbers, and you know, he had a great season at. He initially went to Oklahoma, so he was at Oklahoma his freshman year. He had about 700 yards rushing. His sophomore year, he had almost 1,000 yards rushing. He was primed to be the guy, and then he had an injury his third year, and then another recruit came in and did well, so he decided to transfer to Ohio State. That's how he ended up there. And in his last three college games, he had 636 yards, 4 touchdowns, 9.8 yards a carry, 9.1 yards per carry. I mean, those are big numbers, and he did it against Michigan State, Northwestern, which was a top 10 defense, and Clemson. So he wasn't doing it against, the Citadel, So
right.
I'm anxious.
You didn't run that up on VMI?
No, it wasn't them. Not them. So I'm just anxious to see how he translates to the pro game. I think he has the size. I think he has the speed to be a serviceable running back. But, North Carolina has a couple of guys that are really good.
Right.
So there's a lot of talent there. The funny thing is the running back position has changed so much. It seems like over the last maybe 5 years or so, maybe 7, it's just different than what it used to be. So more running back by committee. The feature back is pretty much not there anymore. You're going to have 2 or 3 backs. Every team has 2 or 3 backs they're using these days. So it's a little different, but yeah, still is going to be exciting to see how these guys, how it pans out.
So I'm with you. I think those are conspicuous suspects, usual suspects in some of the names because they were big players last year. Their numbers in the games, particularly for Sermon, the games he performed in were primetime games.
Right.
I think his coming out party might have been Northwestern or Clemson. I
Yeah.
think Clemson, for his follow up act at Clemson, was just amazing.
Yeah.
So he showed and proved. I think the issue for him is, is he injury prone? Is that going to be something that sticks with him? And it's such a physical position. It's going to be hard, I think, to get people past that until you put in the reps. You just demonstrate you can show up and you can be available week in and week out. I think the North Carolina guys, both of them performing and getting over 1,000 yards. I think one of them had like 19 touchdowns. The other one had 9 touchdowns, but they both demonstrated that they can get in the end zone. They got breakaway speed. They've got power. Mm-hmm. They can catch it out of the backfield. So I think they'll be early off the board as well. The kid in Memphis is the one that's kind of surprising to me. Gainwell, I think, had next big numbers, 1,450 yards on the season. He got 13 TDs. This is a guy, this is how it happens, right? This is how you end up with the Terrell Davis, right? There's a guy that goes to a smaller school, doesn't have as many primetime games, but teams see him on his pro day and take a gamble, and he lands somewhere that really opens up opportunity for him to showcase his skill. There are other guys on this list when you look at the top 10, top 24 that the NFL have listed or the other teams have listed, 650 yards, 700 yards, like not 1,000-yard guys, but people expect that maybe that was because of the offenses they were in, the schools they went to, that are going to be banking on them. But what it made me think about is, well, who's drafting for running back? Who's got that listed as a need? And what surprised me more than anything is there are only 4 teams. There are only 4 teams that are listing it on their list. And those teams are Tampa, Arizona, Miami, and Pittsburgh. Those are the only 4 teams that show a need at the running back position. So that leads me to 2 questions, but I want to start with this one. Do you think, and you alluded to a little bit earlier, do you think that the running back position has lost its value because the game has changed that much?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I hate to say it. There was a time, and maybe it was just me, but there was a time when you went out for Little League football and it was time to go, try out for different positions.
Right.
The running back line was the longest one. The running back line and the quarterback line was always the longest. I mean, you have clearly linemen in the quarterback line, right? But the running back line used to be a long line. Everybody wanted to be a running back, So I definitely think it used to be. I mean, you go back and think about like the Tony Dorsetts, the guys like that really, stamped the game. Barry Sanders, Walter Payton, all those legends, and you can even go back to Jim Brown. But it was said that if you want to win a championship, you got to have a defense and a running game. That was the ideology, right?
I don't think that's changed, but it seems like teams are trying to find a different way to get there.
I don't think it has either, but airing the ball out pays money. The people want to see touchdowns. They want to see high flying. I blame the greatest show on turf. I blame Kurt Warner and the greatest show on turf. Zahir Akeem, Isaac Bruce, Torrey, all those guys, Marshall Faulk. I blame them because it was the greatest show on turf, and you really got to see even from the running back position because he was a great running back, but he was also great in the passing game. So it worked perfectly. It was a perfect synergy. And I think from there things just kept going, and now it's to where it's all about airing it out. And so I think, can you imagine Christian Okoye in today's NFL?
No.
The Nigerian Nightmare. It was a great piece, right? But if he was in the league today, he'd just be another guy that might get a couple snaps a game.
Right.
He'd be in the backfield with 2 or 3 other guys. He might get goal line.
So why do you have a guy? So why do guys like Zeke get paid? Even though he's not on their top list of guys getting paid, they're paying linemen more than they're paying Zeke every year. So he got a nice contract, but and he's at the top end of the food chain.
Right.
Do you think that is about the value of the running back because teams feel like they can just get one out? I mean, there's so many. You can just get one, or you can get a committee. Or do you think is that too many teams have been burned looking for the next great, the Emmitt Smiths out there, the Walter Paytons, the durable guys? I mean, look at your man up in Minnesota, who I like, right? I think he's up for a deal this year, right? And I liked him at Florida State.
I
You
know
know
who
my
you're
man.
talking about.
Yeah.
If you didn't ask me, I'd have called his name out. I had him on my fantasy team this year.
But he did well for me, by the way. But I think, but he was out like 3-4 games too, you know, and so I think the value of the position. But then you have somebody like Gurley, right, who gets super duper paid in LA. But then the next year, you know,
his arthritis start acting up.
Right. Which you know,
I think what it is, bro. I think it's a marketing game. I mean, we've talked about the quarterbacks last episode, and I think we can agree. I'm not going to ever say no that somebody doesn't deserve any amount of money, but I mean, I think we can agree that it's crazy to what the quarterback market is doing. It's just one of those markets to where it's quarterback friendly. The running back market, running backs are equally as important, in my opinion, but the market just isn't set for them. It's just not. When you look at now all of those running backs that we named, for this year, I'm going to predict that probably maybe one will go in the first round. Maybe. I don't see.
Wow.
Maybe. Because here's the thing.
I can't argue with you if you only got 4 teams that are saying they've got a need. Interestingly enough, none of them list that need in their top 2 needs. The running back at the earliest is their third biggest need. So to your point, they may all fall to second round.
That's what I'm saying. And because they know that even if they don't get Najee Harris, Trey Sermon, I don't want to wish bad on him, you probably will be able to pick him up in the third round for cheap, right? Or cheaper. So why spend the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th pick in the draft on him or Najee Harris? You can pick up a guy in the second, third, fourth, fifth round that can be serviceable enough to do what you need done. Think about Pittsburgh. They have what's the guy's name up there? They got running the ball.
John Connor.
John Connor. They got John Connor up there. He had a good year a couple years ago. Last year he struggled a little bit.
I think they got Snell backing him up.
Okay, so they got him and Snell. All they need is one more guy that can take a couple carries again. You know what I'm saying? They don't need a home run hitter. What they need is they really need a quarterback. But
well, let me pause you there though, because that's where I disagree. I think that's the mentality that teams are trying to feed you, not you, but feed the public, right? Mm-hmm. But let's think about realistically, the best running backs can play 3 downs easy. Most of the really best ones, the really great ones, can be an every down back, which means they can run it up the middle. If the defense is giving them that, they can hit it off tackle. If the defense is giving that, they can play action to a bubble screen if that's what it is. They can get out in the flat and get blocks. They can stay in and pass block. They can recognize and pick up blitzes. That's what the best running backs do. And early on, most of us learn how to do that. That's what we learn. That's what we learn as part of the journey. The issue I have is that teams have kind of marginalized that to by committee. So when you bring in, Stanley Jenkins is your blocking back. When you bring in DeAndre Watson is your pass out the backfield block. So, you're doing so much subbing. Like, it's just like baseball with pitching. You're using people in situations, and that's not football. That football is you got guys that can, I'm not saying that you want to take another guy, a backup running back's job, but I think Pittsburgh needs a good running back. When they were at their best, they had a great running game.
They did. But what I'm saying is this. So let's look at Baltimore, for example, right? Okay. They've done it for the last several years. They've got J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State, I might add. They also have Mark Ingram,
right?
Or had him. And they also got another guy that they use. So what I'm saying is they can get the production. So it's like what they're doing is if you get 2 or 3 guys that you pay 4th or 5th round money to, you can get the production that you would get out of one first round guy, possibly. And I think that's the ideology that they're going with, because they're sinking so much money into their quarterback.
Right.
And possibly a receiver, right? So that's part of the reason. It's like anytime there's a top heavy market somewhere, you're looking for somewhere to offload to cut expenses, right?
Right.
Just so happens the running back has been one of those positions where they've cut expenses. Now, I do think I think that the most successful teams have a good, at least 3 down back. Look at Kansas City.
Yeah.
Their best success. They've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire this year. Last year they had what's his name before he got in trouble? And he went to Cleveland. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. He did well for me this year too.
He ended up going to Cleveland, but he was their guy there. You know, and he did
I can't
well.
remember his name right now.
I can't think of his name either. But what I'm saying is, I think that you benefit from having a good every down back, or at least a 3 down back that can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can block. He can run. I mean, any running back worth his salt should be able to run, block, and catch. You know what I mean? You don't put one guy in the run, one guy in the block, one guy in. You know what I mean? So, but I just think that's what it is. That's what it's come to. That's what it's come to. If we're gonna give our quarterback $40 million a year, we're gonna give Dak $40 million a year. We can't give Zeke 25 a year. I mean, it's just what it is.
Okay, but then if you come up short on getting to the Super Bowl, or you come up short on getting to the conference championship, you know, you can't be mad either if you don't have what you need. If you can't keep Amari Cooper and pay Gallup and pick up a great tight end, you know, you can't be mad. Right. I think in the end, it takes all facets of your game, and on offense and defense. You know, you're not going to win on the defensive side of the ball if all you have is great middle linebacker play. If you don't have no DBs, you're not going to win. You know, if you don't have a good front 4 or down 3, whichever way you rolling with it, you're not going to win. You have to invest in all sides of the game. You can't get rid of it and coach it out. Now, to me, when I look at this class of running backs, I see a lot of skill position players. I see the potential. I will ask you this as we round out and head to tip off. Do you see any of them that have the potential, other than Sermon, that have the potential to be great?
Great. And see, with Sermon, great is a strong word. You know what I'm saying? Right. I don't even know what Sermon, because when I think of great, I think of, you know, the Marshall Faulks and those guys. I mean, it's definitely always a possibility with the top guys. I mean, when maybe Najee, maybe I see a lot of upside there with him, and a lot of it depends on if he's put in the right situation, the right team, the right personnel, the right coaching. You know, he's got to land in the right place for that to happen. But he definitely has the potential. Travis Etienne, I'm not sure. He's got home run ability. He's got the speed to break away, but I just don't know how. I don't know. I don't know if I'm sold on him as a every down starter.
So when you talk about great, and I love that you kind of rounded it out like it's got to be the right situation. Right. I think the last great running back drafted, and I'm going on a limb here, but I think Saquon is the most recent back that has really great in him, like great potential. I think the situation in New York is such, they use him a lot. They've given him opportunities. They rely on him. I don't think teams are going to build around their running game. I don't foresee that, right? But I see greatness in Saquon. Out the backfield, gets it done. Now, Edwards-Helaire, another great, he has a lot of potential. He runs low to the ground. I think there's potential for him to be one of those guys, but I would love, you don't think Edwards-Helaire has that potential?
Yes, of course he has the potential, but I think him and Saquon are on two different.
Well, they're different. They're different lanes. But you think about like a Darren Sproles type guy, right? Darren Sproles. People wouldn't put Darren Sproles in a Hall of Fame conversation, but then you go look at his numbers and look at what he did over time. It's like, man, this guy is clearly left his imprint on the game.
He's a great player, but I wouldn't put him. Yeah, you wouldn't put him in there with the Marshall Faulk and those guys. Definitely,
no.
That's
And
what
I
I'm
don't
saying.
see Edwards-Helaire there, but I see
Right.
him as the kind of player that when you look at contributing to you winning a Super Bowl year in, year out, and some of the moves Kansas City's already made, they're lining that up, right? Defensive
Right.
side of the ball, they sure it up. He's going to be a guy that can contribute as long as he can stay healthy. And I think that opportunity is key. If teams aren't giving their running game the opportunity is everything to you to realizing potential, showcasing that, and to really open the imagination of offensive coordinators and play callers. And I think there's opportunity for him. I think there's opportunity for my man. I'm mad we can't remember his name right now. The dude up in Minnesota.
Dalvin Cook.
And if he ever hears this, Dalvin, sorry, because I really liked you at Florida State too. But think Dalvin
definitely.
Cook has gotten a ton of opportunity. I think Dalvin Cook has showcased a lot this last couple of years, and if he stays healthy, he has the potential. But in this class right now, Najee Davis has to fall in the right situation. Najee Harris has got to fall in the right situation. Sermon's got to be in the right situation. Javonte's got to, all these guys have to be in a situation where the running game is focused on. The Raiders are like looking to do that with Jacobs, and they gave him a bunch of opportunities. I think the quarterback is marginal enough that he'll have a chance. But again, health is a factor. You've got to keep consistency on the offensive side of the ball to make that happen. And we'll see in time. It's time to round out the tip-off, Big Dame. And I know you've been chomping at the bit to get to this. Tip-off for those who are just getting into Game Time. This is where we start winding it up to some trending news, any news or events that are leading the way or preview of trends that may come. Big Dame, news that Manny Pacquiao is going to lace him up, step in the ring with our man, Bud Crawford. Terrance Bud Crawford in June. Yes, this is a fight in the boxing game. I think it's not the one the fans have been wanting. Everybody's wanting to see Crawford versus our man Errol Spence. I want to see that. That would be a modern day Hagler. It could be Hagler Leonard, Hagler Hearns. It would be either one of those. But we're gonna get Bud in the ring, which is always good. Anytime you get Bud Crawford in the ring, it's always great. But against Manny, and Manny to me is an X factor for anybody. You posed a question for P-Production that I think is great. What does this do to the welterweight division? And I'm curious to know what your thoughts are.
Well, I think it sets the tone, right? So here's the issue, right? Basically, in the welterweight division, you have the top of the division is Errol Spence and Crawford, in my opinion. I think we agree on that.
We do.
They're head and shoulders above everybody else in the welterweight.
1A, 1B, pick an order.
Right. To me, it's 50-50 with those two. Right. I think Bud can beat Spence. I think Spence can beat Bud. I really do. I think it would be a great fight. Pacquiao is right underneath them, and then you got everybody else, right? In my opinion. Now, you might have some others. I know Jaron Ennis is up and coming. He's been calling out a lot of those guys, and he can go. So, I mean, we'll see. Time will tell with him. But I think what's happening with Spence and Crawford is the power play. They can't get the money figured out. That's why we can't get that fight, right? Spence wants to be the A side. Crawford wants to be, at one time it was 50-50. I think he might want to be the A side if he can be. So there's that power struggle going on. At the end of the day, if Crawford beats Pacquiao, decidedly stops him, I don't think Spence can overlook this fight. And see, at this point, Crawford is being played down to the point to where it's like, well, who's he really fought? Right? That's what people are saying. Who's he really fought? And technically, you could say, okay, I don't know who he's really fought. You know what I mean? But he's dominated him. Whoever he's fought, he's dominated, and I give props to that. I know a fighter well enough to know when I look at somebody, this dude is a fighter.
Right.
Bud is a fighter, man, up and down. So it doesn't matter to me that he hasn't beat a big enough name for somebody else. My thing is, if he beats Pacquiao, like I predict that he will, I think he'll stop Pacquiao. Then you can't overlook him. You cannot overlook him. Pacquiao beat Thurman. Thurman's claiming he's was the best thing since sliced bread. He's back. He's healthy now. Somebody fight me. Somebody fight me. Okay, well, Pacquiao beat him. So if Crawford,
somebody fight me.
That's how he's acting, man. He's running around talking. He's dropping everybody's name. He's trying to get a fight. He's trying to get a big money fight, and I don't blame him. I mean, it's his livelihood. But yeah, if Bud beats Pacquiao, like I think he will, I think Spence's team and his team, they have to sit down. The matchmaking bodies of boxing have to make the fight. They have to make Bud and Spence. They have to. That's the big.
So you think this fight really sets the table? But to me, because in your question, how does this impact the welterweight division? To me, part of the question is is it shifting things in a way that it shouldn't already be going? And that's really because if you look at rankings, you've got your order that puts Thurman at 4. You have some that put Thurman at 5 with Sean Porter ahead of him. And he also rans after that, Mikey Garcia and others going right behind that, right?
Right.
I look at that list and I say, okay, if Errol Spence's camp said, well, we fought Sean Porter, Bud should fight Sean Porter. I think no, exactly. I don't think there's anybody on that list. And the problem is Manny Pacquiao is an X factor for anybody and that he gets in the ring with, because, on any given night, if Manny summons up old Manny and the motor's running and, you just happen to have a rough night before, or you ate wrong or what, man, your conditioning can let you let you down, because Manny's going to keep coming. That is his style. That's what he's been doing. I think if Bud is on his game and Manny's on his game, Manny's going to have a short night. Bud's going to have a short night. And then the conversation happens. I think he and Spence should be 50-50. I think the paper should be 50-50 because I think they're an equal draw on the dollars. I think, Bud has equal marquee appeal because boxing fans know Bud's got a toolkit that's vicious. Now, you could say that the Sean Porter fight, the Mike Garcia fight, and other fights that Earl's had that have been kind of big name. Well, okay. But Bud's fights, but Bud's shown you what he's got. Bud has a toolkit, buddy.
Here's the argument for the A side that from Spence's camp. Spence's pay-per-views have done much better financially than Crawford's have.
Which is part of that. But you got to throw that out because Bud fought in Nebraska for so long. Like he only was fighting in Nebraska for the longest, which is hurting his money.
I agree. And it shouldn't play a part. It should be based on talent. But at the end of the day, when you're putting on an event, they're going to say, "Hey, look at what we did on our last 3 pay-per-views. We killed it."
I got you.
And you only did a third. When you do an event, you only do a third of what we do. So why should I give you equal money when I'm generating the bulk of the money? You see what I'm saying?
So what do you think the cut should be then? What do you 60-40?
Well, here's what I heard. I think personally, I'm not mad at 60-40. I'm not mad at 60-40. My thing is take the 60-40, beat them, and you the man if you're Bud, right? So, but here's another model that I heard that made a lot of sense, and I think it was Bob Arum that actually threw out the idea of what they should do. 40-40, winner takes the other 20.
I like this. I like that. I was just about to say I like a winner's purse.
Yeah,
so we'll pay you for the work that night. That's what your guarantee is, and then the winner's purse is what you get if you get the win. Now, I think the issue for boxing, and this would be in my mind if I was a boxer, we've seen a lot of fights where the decision was clear to everybody watching, but the judges find a way to make it a draw. And if I got a winner's purse out there that on a draw I don't win, so you'd have to have a stipulation that if it ends up a draw, then the winner's purse is equally split. Like you'd have to have that clause in there. But if that clause is there, I might be okay with that.
Right. Well, and then you end up 50-50 if it's a draw, and then you run it back because there's going to be a rematch clause in there anyway.
Right.
Run it back
which is going to be a hit. which is going to be a hit, no doubt,
Yeah.
no doubt. So here's my thing: do you see a way that the welterweight division is so? So let's say you get what you want, you get a Bud stoppage, which leaves the way for, or paves the way for, the fight we want to see with Spence and Crawford. What happens then to Keith one time, Thurman, and Sean Porter, and your boy Ennis, right? What happens to those guys, Mikey Garcia? Are they going to have something to look forward to, or do we get, which would make me happy? Do we get one of those as a matchup on the undercard? Can we get a Porter Garcia fight? Can we get a Porter Ennis fight on the undercard?
I think that would be great. I think Ennis Porter or Ennis Garcia in the undercard would be great. Let's see. Let's bring him up. Let's bring Ennis up. Let's see. He's calling out the big dogs. Let's see. Put him on the
stage.
Is
he ready for that, though? I mean, do you think that's the right next step for him?
Yeah, definitely. He can fight. But put him on the stage. See if he can handle the pressure of the lights and still perform, right?
Right.
He performs there. Now, okay, he maybe in the next couple of fights, he's ready for a Bud or Spence. Because I think if Spence beats Crawford, I think Spence will go ahead and move up. His goal is to collect all the belts.
Mm-hmm.
If he does that, he'll be undisputed in the welterweight division, and he'll move up to probably 154 and start fighting for belts up there. Or I think he ultimately wants to try to fight Canelo or something at maybe 160 or something like that. So
he looks like he can take that with him. He looks like he takes everything with him if he goes up.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like he loses that. Like in I think it was a Porter fight that I saw, or it might have been a Garcia fight. After weigh-in, like what he bubbled up to was he looks like his walk-around weight. So it looks like he could easily bring that on with him if he progressed up to 154 or went up to Canelo, who, I don't know, he might retire at that point. Canelo might look for the exit,
right.
Because that would be a tough loss to take. To have held it this long, fighting these other guys, and then have to see Earl hungry.
Well, and I'm hoping Canelo will go ahead and fight some real competition, like maybe Charlo, Boo Boo Andrade, somebody.
I would love for him to fight Charlo,
but I don't think
he will.
I don't know if he'll. I think Charlo can beat Canelo.
Yeah,
I think Charlo can beat Canelo. So we'll just see. But I think the welterweight division. It's a shame, man, because it's so packed with talent. They really could have done like a what was that tournament they did? Andre Ward was in it back some years ago.
It was like a tournament of champions, right? Yeah, Super Six.
Super Six tournament.
Yeah.
They could have really did something like that, and they had all these guys in their prime. You had Thurman, you had Garcia, Porter, Spence, all these guys before Thurman got hurt or whatever, and they all could have just fought it out. But it's boxing. You got to go through you got to play the games and the politics to get a fight. So,
well, that's a great tip and segue, man, for our main event, because for the main event tonight, we want to talk about the comparison. Boxing for a long time, that was our gladiator sport, man. That was what we had. Tune in and see people go at it. I think we were treated to Layla Ali when we got the women boxing game going. Although there were a lot of female boxers that boxed, I think she was probably the most successful that we saw at really getting fans to tune in and pay attention to it. But then along comes the UFC, man. MMA comes on the scene, and when we see MMA, it's different. You had some kickboxing out there, but that wasn't really getting eyeballs. But when MMA comes on, and UFC in particular, it has a way of taking hold of society slowly but surely. And now, man, to me, UFC has got it down pat. Their marketing, their showcasing of their talent and putting on events, awesome. Now, their fighters don't make nearly as much as these boxers do, right? But they're making good money, and they're getting out in front of fans. They're building a fan base. They're growing it, and so my question to you is: boxing versus the UFC long term, who's going to win? Who is going to win the attention and the eyeballs of the gladiator sport fan?
Man, I don't know, man. I think I want to say boxing has enough roots to stand up. And it depends on what you consider winning. I think for boxing at this point, if it can just stay around, it's won. You know what I mean? But I think as far as who's going to be more popular in the long, I think it's UFC all day long. I think it just pulls more. It pulls more people in. The average, you know, there's not boxing gyms in every city.
Right.
Certain cities have, certain towns have boxing gyms and some don't. The UFC, any kid, if you wrestled in high school or middle school or took karate class or anything, man, you can get involved. This could be for you.
Right.
So I think a lot of people, a lot of the fans are probably reliving some of their glory days through these UFC fights. Not to mention they're super, super entertaining.
Very.
For one. For two, you always end up seeing the best fight the best.
You do,
which is a problem in boxing, right? So,
and unafraid to take the L. I mean, unafraid. Like, it's not like the best fighting the best, and then when they get in there, they're going to run around. Like, no, they get in and they get after it. And if I take the L, I take the L. I'll be back in a few weeks. Let me heal up and let me get this swelling down. I'll be right back at you.
Yep. Just a few weeks ago, Israel Adesanya, he was fighting undefeated, right? 20-0, I believe. Welterweight champion. Speaking of welterweights, welterweight champion, welterweight or middleweight champion. And he's mean. He can go.
Oh, I know.
He moves up to light heavyweight to fight the champion at light heavyweight because he daring to be great, right? He ends up losing. He got caught. He got taken down, and then he didn't really get hurt, but it was just too light. The guy was just way too heavy. I mean, the guy came in the ring at like 220. I think he was about 185. It's just too much. Right. So he lost.
Much.
It's too much, man. You're too close, man. So sorry. But he tried it. He went for it. You know what I mean? He's still the welterweight champion. He'll go back down and dominate. No problem. But I just think that's the difference. I think in boxing, either they want to preserve the O, or it's just all about the money, which I'm not going to be mad at anybody for being about their money. But man, at some point, if this is your passion, if this is what you're shooting for, you got to dare to be great.
You know what I like about the UFC is, in addition to the action, it's the art form. Like, at first, it was just like the first couple of times you look and you're like, man, it's just gory, man. You see people get their faces busted. But that's where I first really learned about the Gracie brothers and what they did with their grappling techniques and their style, which I think is really rooted in a modified version of judo and capoeira and kind of all that they incorporate. But seeing them, and it wasn't actually one of the brothers or one of the male fighters that was using the style. It was a female fighter that I was watching. And I'm like, whoa, this, and seeing how dope it is. But you have judo, taekwondo, karate, kung fu, and other boxing and wrestling, that people are enlisting to get a win. It's watching the skill with which people leverage and use leverage and positioning to fight. And it's the respect the fighters have with one another. I mean, like, it is real. We're in here as gladiators, and, when it's over, I celebrate your effort and your heart, because you're in there, blood and guts. It's all in. And to your point, you're not tuning in to watch, Stanley Watson from, nowhere fight, Timmy Wilkins from nowhere part 2, but you're watching guys or athletes who are on the come up, and they know they got to go through one another to get to the next level. Or you're watching champions put their belts on them, and UFC is giving you that every week. Every week you're getting fights. Whereas with boxing, man, Top Rank might put on, a couple no names or a couple up and comers, but I don't know if the marketing is done well enough consistently. And we talked about this a while back on DAPTIME Lifestyle about boxing and how it was nice that Top Rank was giving you some good free fights. but it's not consistent enough that you can really sink your teeth into the fan base and keep the fan coming. You know, you and I were talking in pre-production about catching your boy Bronner a few weeks ago, you know, getting sucked in yet again to an Adrian Broner fight. And listen, when I first saw Adrian Broner, I was like, I really wanted to see him fight and win. I thought his hand speed, I thought some of the stuff he did, he was crafty. I wanted to see him, you know, but it's like his fights now have kind of fallen into a lane where, okay, I've seen this dance before. It's the waltz. And, you know, you don't see on America's Dancing with Stars, you don't see the waltz as a closing dance, right? You want to see some cha-cha, some salsa, some spice, and he's not giving us that. So I think boxing has a lot of work to do. You don't think that they're going to lose their fan because of their roots, and I think it's a great oak. But I think there's the potential, man. I think the UFC has something that if boxing doesn't churn out better, faster, it could lose a portion of its audience.
I think one of the things that kind of saves boxing is almost like, so even like, you remember when we watched, I think it was Lopez and what's his name? Teofimo Lopez and High Tech, Lomachenko.
Oh, yeah, Lomachenko.
Remember the excitement? It was a buzz surrounded around that fight, right? Even Tyson Fury and Wilder, there was a buzz around that. You were getting the top guys in the weight division finally to fight each other. And Hagler Hearns, there was a buzz around that finally happening. It was like, who's going to win? You don't know. And I think boxing purists, real boxing fans, they long for that. So that's why Adrian Broner can get up there and talk his talk and people are going to watch because they're just hoping, man, maybe, just maybe I'm going to get what I got before. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or you know, and same thing with boxing. It's like, you know, they're hoping that one day I'm going to get Spence and Crawford. I'm going to get that Hagler Hearns fight, that Hagler Leonard fight. I'm going to get that again. And it's kind of like hoping for it. But it's so few and far between that you actually get that. Whereas, like you said, with the UFC, I swear for the last 3 weekends, I've watched great fights. And I've been looking forward to Saturday night to sit down and watch them too. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, this is the heavyweight fight this week. I'm gonna watch. So it's becoming more consistent, and they're more trustworthy than boxing. And I think that's the thing.
I'm gonna hit you with the DJ quick, buddy. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And I think the problem with boxing is in time, right? If because you said it. Boxing purists and true boxing fans, those of us who remember I listened to Hagler and Leonard on the radio because I was in basic training at the time of that fight in spring of what was it, 87, and
something like
that fight was so exciting on the radio that I was like, oh my God, I wish I could see that, right? So that's going back. But you got a generation of people now, man, that they never saw any of those great fights. They don't know what it was like to tune in to Wild World of Sports on Saturday and see, you know, Ali fight Ken Norton. They don't know those fights. They don't know what it's like to see Leonard and Arguello. They don't know to see Aaron Pryor. You know, they don't. So because they haven't seen and lived in that, they're not missing it. So it's, you know, if they tune in to a Teofimo versus Lomachenko, it's like, okay, that's a cool fight. When's the next one? Tank comes up maybe a month later. Okay, we got Tank. Then you waiting. And the promoters are still holding old school death grip on producing these fights. Meanwhile, UFC is hitting you with so much product. You know, it's if you liken it to the dope game, it's like, well, my man is never out.
Right. He don't know what a drought is.
Right. You telling me to come back in a month, man, I done got hit off 3-4 times before I come back to you. You know what I'm saying? It's the fiend, man. It's the fiend in us. If you're a gladiator sport fan, I get my fix every Saturday night. I don't have to wait until June right? So then the dollars make sense arguments comes in, because now every time I have a big fight, I have to overpay to get the fans to come back. So what used to cost me $20 million in promotion now costs me $50 million in promotion. So I got to have $100 million night. Well, wait a minute. If I'm paying the fighters and I got a commitment to pay each one of them 25, whoa, I'm breaking even on a $100 million fight. So now I got to get a $200 million night. Well, okay, I still got projections to make that, except in order to do that, I can't charge 89 for the fight. I got to charge 149 for the fight, which now people are bailing out or they're going to hack in. You see what I'm saying? So now I take an L on that fight. I'm not necessarily eager to promote the next one.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And so if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And I think that's going to hurt boxing if they don't. I think they were on a run, but you got to give enough free content away. You got to get enough free good content away to get people to pay for your heavy hitter. If you want them to buy Blue Magic, you got to give out some samples.
The problem with boxing, I think, is that there's too many cooks in the kitchen, right? That don't got no ingredients. You don't stir nothing. You don't flip nothing. You ain't got no salt. You ain't got nothing. What are you doing? Why are you even in the kitchen? But you're getting paid, right? So we gotta inflate everything so you can get your cut. But you haven't done anything. Right. You know what I mean? You ain't even so much as poured a glass of water in the kitchen. So it's like, that's the thing for me. And you know, I'm for everybody getting their money. You know what I'm saying? But I think at some point, I remember when PBC first started, that was their claim to fame. We're bringing boxing back to free TV, right? Errol Spence used to fight on PBC. You could catch him. It reminded me of the old ABC Wide World of Sports days.
Right. Because it would be on Saturday. Yeah.
On Saturday afternoon, right? You could catch Errol at like 4 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon fight in Texas somewhere.
Right.
So I mean, these guys were coming up, and it's like once they get to where they can demand the pay-per-view, demand the big money, you might see them once a year, maybe twice if you're lucky, and they're going to milk it as long as they can. You're not going to, and I'm not saying it's that they're being scared, like they don't want to fight other people, but I think it's their handlers are like, hey, let's go this route. We're going to fight this guy, then we'll get to him last. You know what I mean? But we got to get as much money as we can while we're here. And I understand that, but it's like, it just takes away from the competition of it all to me. You know?
And we can't afford that. We can't, to your point, I think, well, we can, but boxing can. And I think that's where some of those fights we've talked about, you know, set up the right kind of promotion deals and sponsorship deals so that you can pay these guys a serviceable wage for some of those low-level fights. Throw Lamont Peterson a fight, you know? Throw Lamont in the ring with, you know, an Ennis or somebody like this on the come up, right? Throw these guys, give them a chance to make some money, make a living on the way up, build some brand awareness. A lot of these guys that fight on some of these UFC fights, they're not going to win a belt. Cowboy's not winning the belt. Cowboy not winning the belt, but Cowboy going to be in there. He going to fight 5 or 6 times over the next 6 months. And they're going to be good fights because you know Cowboy's coming in the ring and he's giving you a good fight, and he can build up a fan following. He keeps your stuff, you know, in the eyes of the public in a way that people want more of your product. And that's all I'm saying. Boxing has to remember that you got to have fans teased enough, you know, and you don't have to make it just corny, dry content. You can have a couple of these new younger guys, but your feature can be a flashback great fight by one of the. And it's an Errol Spence fight, right? Or it's a Bud Crawford fight. That's the main event that you're going to watch that night. But here are a couple of undercards of some dudes that are coming up. It's the marketing. You said this in pre-production too, which I thought was really insightful. Dana White is UFC. Boxing is Tom, Dick, Harry, Joe, Willie. And that's the top names, you know?
And Hank.
It's the people underneath that you got to be concerned about on the come up to deal with, you know. Can guys, because they don't have any money, can they stay healthy? Can they stay out of trouble? All these other things that are factors. So boxing doesn't have an overarching body. There's no boxing commissioner over everything, right? And I think that hurts it too. So I think he could be in trouble, but for me, for you, for the true purists, we'll always be here. We'll always be here for hoping that Errol Spence and Bud Crawford fight will come up one day.
Yeah, I mean, well, you'll be like what I am now is like UFC is like my side piece, right? A hot side piece, right? A hot side piece. She getting like more time than home,
right? Right.
A lot of late nights with UFC. It's crazy. So, so I mean, that's how it feels. It's like I go kick it with the UFC. I get to watch these fights. I get to kind of get my fix with that, and then we'll see what happens in June. When I get to see Pacquiao and Bud, and then in July I'll get Spence and Ugas, and then I'm back to the side chick for another 6 months while I wait on them to figure it out again. So yeah, but it's crazy, man, and I get it. There's a lot of politics and a lot of moving parts in the boxing game, which just, like I said, it's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and I get that, but they got to figure something out. There has to be a better way.
They do. That, I think, is a great way to segue to our closing segment you called the Championship Rounds. Big Dame's Championship Rounds. So in tonight's segment of Big Dame's Championship Rounds, what you got for me?
Man, Championship Rounds. This segment of Championship Rounds is brought to us by This is a segment. Let me just say this. This is a segment where we feature quotes, famous quotes from well-known fighters. It could be UFC, could be legendary prize fighters, what have you. So we're going to highlight those quotes. We're going to bring them home like only we do. And that's that. So this week comes to us from the one and only Sugar Ray Leonard. And the quote is, "If you never know failure, you will never know success." Perfect for this conversation, right? Perfect for this conversation. All too often, we have to stay focused on what the task at hand is. What is your ultimate goal in life? Is it to be a champion? Is it to make lots of money? Is it to be seen on TV? Is it to provide for your family? Whatever it is, focus on that goal, and at all odds, take every shot at that goal that you can. Because what this quote tells me is that on the way to any success, any level of success, you're going to realize failure along the way. It's going to happen. The problem is, as we said last time, you don't lose when you get knocked down. You lose when you stay down.
Right.
So shoot for your goal, learn from your failures, and keep pushing towards success, because it is on the path. The only way you don't get to the end of your path is if you stop moving. So that's all.
Respect, God. Respect, God. I have to say, I actually love that, especially thinking about Sugar Ray's career. Here's a guy, when you look at his career, littered with victory after victory after victory. But when he comes on the scene to us, right? He comes on the scene in the Olympics, comes home a winner, is on the Wheaties box, turns pro, is a winner, 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 is a winner. I mean, you just know him as a winner. And, even though he knew defeat as a professional fighter later in his career, hearing him make that statement, you're like, oh, but you didn't really have defeat. But you got to go back and think, well, before you met him as a winner, how many L's had he taken?
Right.
How many L's had he taken learning how to run as much as he had to run? How many L's did he take learning how to throw that right hook? I mean, that left hook, that right cross, that jab. How many L's did he take being slow, not being fast enough? How many L's did he take along the way? And so I think, you look at him as a winner, but realize that somebody telling you that is telling you private victories come before public ones. And you need to have that. So great nugget, great insight for the championship round tonight, Big Dame. I thank you for the conversation, man. Definitely, as always, super dope. Pete Nice got the needle on the wax on time. For sure. But the three of us are very, very happy to have you tuning in to this episode of Game Time. Listeners, we are enjoying going into this conversation with you that is all sports related. Listen, if you are catching us on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell just next to it so you can catch everything that we drop when we drop it. If you haven't done so, get on over to the website and be sure to subscribe, www.itsdaptime.com, and just drop us an email. Be subscribed, sign up, you can catch everything that we're doing. But you can also tell us what you're thinking about the shows, about the content, maybe give us some suggestions and feedback. And if we pick something that you give us and air it in one of the shows, either DAPTIME Game Time or DAPTIME Lifestyle, we'll be sure to send you a virtual DAP pack as well. In the meantime, of any of these tapings, you can catch us on social media at Instagram. It'll be at DAPTIME21, on Twitter at DAP_time, or Facebook at DAPTIME. But whatever you do, just make sure you do it, share it with 10 other people, because we're trying to build a movement here, people. We'll leave you now, as we always do. When you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror, there is your competition. We out. Peace.